Hello and welcome to KQED Newsroom. I'm Thuy Vu. With the primary election just a few days away, we're devoting most of this program to key California races. And later, KQED senior arts editor Chloe Veltman will join us with her top picks of Bay Area arts offerings. But first, this happened in San Jose last night. A Trump rally turned violent. Trump supporters say they were attacked by protesters outside the rally. This morning, Trump referenced the incident in a tweet, saying the disturbance was caused by a, quote, small group of thugs. Also making a swing through California are the Democratic presidential candidates. At stake are more than 470 Democratic delegates. Polls show Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders are neck and neck.
It doesn't get any better than being introduced by Barbara Boxer in Oakland, California.
We have spoken to 137,000 Californians, and by the time this campaign is over, that number will be well over 200,000.
Joining me now to discuss what to look for next Tuesday are KQED senior editor of politics and government, Scott Shafer, San Francisco Chronicle columnist Debra Saunders, and University of San Francisco political science professor James Taylor. Welcome to you all. Thanks for being here. Well, Scott, Hillary Clinton was supposed to be campaigning in New Jersey this week, but she and Bill Clinton are now having as many as 30 planned events in California. What happened here? She was once expected to easily win in California, but now she's struggling a bit.
She really is. And we've now have 4 polls showing it's essentially a dead heat within a point or two. And I think what's happened is this. California, of course, is a very diverse state. And for many, many months, the conventional wisdom has been that blacks, Latinos, and Asian American voters would be her firewall, that would be the way she would win, as she has in the South, for example. And Bernie Sanders has made tremendous inroads among those voters, and that's where the gap has really closed. And in some cases, he's ahead of her with Latinos, ahead of her among Asian voters in one poll. So that's really what's happened. And of course, this is really not about the math anymore, Thuy. It's about the psychology. Sure. She's going to be the nominee, but you don't want to limp across the finish line. You want to win and have a real victory lap. So that's why they're really going all out in California.
And why is it that, for example, Latino and Asian voters are gravitating more toward Bernie Sanders? Because those were 2 demographic groups that she actually won 8 years ago during her first run for president. Well,
there's that same generational divide that we see among other voters, other voting groups. Younger Latinos, younger African Americans, they're very enthusiastic about the message that Bernie Sanders has on income inequality and student debt, all those kinds of things. They see him as an authentic person. The Clintons are a little old in California. They've been on the ballot 3 times. They've won every time. But nonetheless, I think he's sort of like the Golden State Warriors, he's the hot ticket.
He's the Donald Trump of the Democrats. So, I mean, everybody's expecting Hillary Clinton to win the nomination, but a lot of Democrats don't like Hillary Clinton. They didn't like her in 2008 when she was supposed to win the nomination, and then she didn't. And now, just as she's supposed to close the deal, people are looking at Bernie Sanders and thinking, he voted against the Iraq War, she voted for it. She's gotten all this money from Goldman Sachs. He wants to go after the big banks. She's scripted. He sounds like he's real. And that's why Hillary's in California instead of taking a victory lap.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I think Hillary Clinton realizes that California will be the narrative after she leaves. If she crosses the line here, she can, convey that she's won this very large, diverse state with a Democratic, strong base. Jerry Brown on down to down the ticket. The Democrats are strong here in California. She would be able to sort of catapult herself in the national campaign from California and saying, I am the person who can defeat Donald Trump because I won big states, diverse states, West Coast states, and the Latino vote, I think, is going to be very important. The women's vote is going to be very important, and the African American vote, I think, are all going to be very important in different places throughout the country.
Well, let's take the reverse of that, though. What happens if she doesn't win California? Because as Scott mentioned, this is a psychology game at this point.
No, I think one of the Clinton insiders recently wrote an article on the Wall Street Journal, I think it was shown, and actually suggested that Hillary Clinton could actually not be the nominee, and that there's a scenario where Bernie Sanders could actually come out on top. If she crosses over in Jersey and loses California, of course she's going to put the best face on that, but at the same time, she leaves here limping, and Donald Trump, the one thing he does well is draw attention to a flaw in a campaign or in a person. That's the only thing he does well, and that's why he does it so much. And I think he would, any mistake Hillary's campaign makes, I think Donald Trump is going to pounce on it.
And I think it would give Bernie Sanders reason to continue fighting up until the convention in Philadelphia at the end of July, as opposed to beginning to consolidate votes and really get behind Hillary Clinton. And so that's the last thing she needs. That said, I think that after the convention, California's primary, whatever happens, is going to be pretty quickly forgotten.
But whoever would have thought that it would be this close with the Democrats now instead of the Republicans? Nobody would have predicted this months ago.
I mean,
speaking of the Republicans, though, I want to make sure we get to that, too, because Trump, obviously, is the presumptive nominee there. And, Scott, you recently did a story about how his candidacy is affecting the California Republican Party's efforts to broaden its base. Let's take a quick look at some of the excerpts from that.
A California Republican convention usually gets little, if any, media coverage, but when the party faithful gathered in Burlingame recently, it got the attention of hordes of journalists and hundreds of protesters.
This country is about diversity, it's about racial justice, it is not about white supremacy, and it is not about hating Muslims.
Keeble and most of the demonstrators are here to protest Donald Trump's message. He's the keynote speaker at today's lunch.
This is my Donald Trump piñata. When people ask me what's inside it, I say it's empty.
State party conventions are meant to rally its most active members and set the tone for upcoming elections. But the GOP has been struggling to line up behind its apparent nominee.
So here's the Washington Post today. The time has come to admit that Republican voters want Donald Trump as their nominee. You see that?
But not everyone agrees. After protesters forced him to take a detour around cement barriers and through the mud to get inside, Trump joked about illegal immigration.
That was not the easiest entrance I've ever made. My wife called, she said, there are helicopters following you, and we did, and then we went under a fence and through a fence, and oh boy, I felt like I was crossing the border, actually.
Trump wasn't the first choice of the party elite and mainstream members, but he's striking a chord with many rank-and-file voters.
Well, I'm a woman, and I support him. I think that his rhetoric will change once he gets through the national nomination.
Bobby McGinnis, a Republican delegate from Santa Barbara, says Trump will rebuild America.
Yes, he has not been perfect about everything he's had to say, but I feel that women in the end want someone who's going to give security and bring back America and bring jobs back.
Okay, Scott, so how is Trump's candidacy affecting the California GOP?
Well, you know, I have to say, when we did that package, it was at the end of April, and it was before the Indiana primary, and there was a very robust Stop Trump movement in California, and all the air went out of that balloon. And so I think there's a lot of grinning and bearing what's going on. They have, for the most part, accepted the fact that he is going to be the nominee. But where does all that energy go? Because there are people in the infrastructure of the Republican Party, operatives and others, who will not support Donald Trump and are very dismayed about the fact that he's going to be at the top of the ticket. I think they're going to now turn to protecting vulnerable Republicans at the congressional level, at legislative races in the Senate and the Assembly, but they will put a face on uniting, but I don't think, and Debra, I don't know what you think, but I just don't think there's going to be unanimity at all for the Republicans.
Well, House Speaker Paul Ryan did step in this week after weeks of reluctance and said he will endorse him.
But at the very same time, Mitch McConnell comes out on the same day and criticizes his criticism of Susana Martinez, the governor of New Mexico. So that's a problem.
So as a Republican for the June 7 primary, I'm voting for John Kasich, even though he suspended his campaign. And Scott was talking about what that weekend was like in Burlingame when Donald Trump came. And there was the Trump people, they were triumphant. I went out and talked to a bunch of people at the lunch. There were Latinas, there were Muslims, there were a lot of white people too. And they really are excited about him. And then all of a sudden, Indiana happens. Ted Cruz gets out, and John Kasich, even though he never had a chance of winning delegates, he got out too, and it's changed things. There are a lot of Republicans who aren't really happy with Donald Trump, but what are you going to do? He's the top choice of the voters. I know what I'm doing. I'm waiting until October before I decide whether or not I'm voting for Trump or Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate.
And I think that's the thing to watch, is how many Republicans and maybe some Democrats go for the Libertarian ticket. They've got the former governor of New Mexico is at the top of that ticket, along with Bill Weld, the former moderate Republican governor of Massachusetts. So it's going to be interesting. It'd be sort of the Ralph Nader of 2016, perhaps.
Well, James, if we do end up with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton on the November ballot, which likely will be the scenario, how likely is it that voters from either party will cross over and vote for another party's candidate in protest?
I was trying to think of a scenario where that would happen, and I just don't see a lot of cross-ticket joining, if you will. But if you look at the numbers of Hillary and Bernie compared to Trump, it seems, if anything, that there's a segment of Trump voters that actually jump over to Bernie and that don't support Hillary. In other words, if you put Hillary and Bernie up against Trump, there's a segment of people that seem to go over to Bernie that aren't there for Trump later. So about 10 percentage points, it seems like that. In other words, Bernie does about 10 percentage points better than Hillary.
Can I just say it would be really fun to see a Trump-Sanders race? You know, if they were the nominees, I mean, that would be an interesting
That would have
campaign.
been fun to see that debate, too.
Probably not going to happen, yeah, but that would be a really stark choice. And I have to say, I think Bernie Sanders has gotten something of a free ride. Hillary's not attacking him. The Republicans aren't attacking him for very different reasons. Hillary doesn't want to alienate his supporters. The Republicans would love him to be the nominee.
He came to the Chronicle for an editorial board meeting, and let me credit him. He came. Hillary Clinton didn't. Donald Trump hasn't come, so he gets credit for that. But his answers were underwhelming. He does not have a plan for what he wants to do if he gets in the White House. And yet he doesn't really have to pay for that. So that's the advantage that he has. I do think that there are some Bernie people who will vote for Trump. I don't think I think most Democrats will come home. I think most senators, and this is the killer as a Republican, this is the year when there were so many good candidates in the race, and Hillary Clinton is not really popular. She's vulnerable. The party could have just walked away with it.
She lucked out.
And she really did luck out with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Or Ted Cruz as a
Ted
second
Cruz
choice.
I think exactly.
That made Donald Trump more popular.
Well, how desperate do you have to be for him to be your second choice?
Well, crucial to all this, of course, is voter turnout. So I want to take a moment to talk about that. According to recent voter registration data, the number of voters who are stating no party preference is actually increasing. This year, 23.9% of registered voters are declining to vote as Republicans or Democrats, declining to register as Republicans or Democrats, we should say. And that's up from 21.3% in 2012. So, Debra, nearly a quarter of registered voters in California don't want to affiliate themselves with either one of the big parties. What does that tell you?
Gee, I think that number's low. Because as you watch the way people are turning on their parties, Republicans going for Trump because he's the anti-establishment person, Democrats going for Sanders, it's surprising that number isn't even larger. And we know that the number of decline to states is only going to get
some polls actually show it to be as high as 40% nationally, where it's always been like 36 Democrats, 34% Republicans, 31% independents, and then it went more majority independents out of that plurality. But now it's up to 40% people declaring independent.
I think you have to say, though, that in California, those nonpartisan, no party preference voters, they lean toward the Democratic Party. I mean, if you look at the field poll this week, 65% of those voters support Hillary over Trump, and I think 73% support Sanders over Trump. So, you know, they're not affiliated with a party, but they definitely lean more toward the Democratic
But I think it speaks to a larger national problem of the two-party system that has to be discussed on a national level, because people are frustrated with this system. Bernie and Trump are both a symptom of that. If they're symptoms of other things too, they're symptoms of the problem that the binary two-party system gives people a politics of limited option.
James, that's so right. What does it say about the two parties that they're giving us the two worst people running in this race? I'm sorry, Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. These are, if anybody had said that these were going to be your choices, who do you like? They'd be really low on the list. So the parties really have failed.
I would disagree about Hillary. I would totally agree with you about Trump, and he was able, because it was a large field, he got his segment of that vote, and there were enough people in the race long enough that he was able to get the nomination. Clinton, let's not forget, she began with very high positive, favorable ratings. You know, it's been going down because of the email stuff, the trust. She's got a big problem with trust. She's got a problem with trust. But
and there's a reason she has a problem with trust. And the fact that she could actually possibly lose California tells you everything. That obviously, if people had it to do all over again, and I like the idea of a do-over, by the way.
Here's a question. What would happen if California had been in in February or March.
Yeah. All right,
we'll never know.
Yeah.
So the presidential race, of course, big deal, but also in California, we've got the Senate race going on. I want to make sure we talk about that as well. Let's take a look at what they said recently in a debate. And Scott, you were on the panel for that, beginning with what some of the candidates said about the issue of immigration.
I support comprehensive immigration reform, but a crucial component of comprehensive immigration reform must be a drastic cut in legal immigration levels. Right now, we have a situation where vast numbers of American workers are under wage pressure because of 1.3, 1.4 total immigrants coming in.
Here's what I would do for our economy. Pass comprehensive immigration reform. Secondly, invest in education, STEM, the arts also, but without putting on that student loan debt on our kids. And so free community college and infrastructure, transportation, conveyance of water to all Californians.
I don't support minimum wage that makes people unemployed. There are people on that stage that do. And the minimum wage that passed in California, you know what that results in? $3 billion raise for public employee unions and unemployment in the Central Valley and so many other places where it's too high.
Okay, Scott, you were one of the panelists at that debate. How likely will any of these competing messages resonate with voters?
Well, they're competing with the presidential stuff in the Bay Area. They're competing with the Sharks and the Warriors. I don't think it's getting through at all, really. And we see that in the polls where there's still very large numbers of undecided voters. Those people tend to be Republican more than Democrat, but nonetheless, a third or more of the voters still haven't made up their minds, partly because these Republicans are not well known at all, and their message just isn't getting through.
I mean, there is no A-list for Republicans right now, because there hasn't been a Republican holding statewide office in how many years?
Yeah. In 10 years, since Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That's right. So basically, there aren't any named candidates out there. The biggest names are in Washington: Kevin McCarthy, Ed Royce. They have leadership positions that they worked decades to get. They're not going to walk away from them.
And because of that, too, excuse me, they can't raise money.
That's right.
And if you don't have money, you're not on TV, you're nowhere.
And so what you're going to, I think another reason why people haven't made up their minds, it's which liberal Democrat is going to win this race. And you've got Kamala Harris, who's, you know, she's Northern California, she's tweed, she's highbrow. And then you've got Loretta Sanchez, she's rayon, right? She's Orange County, and she's a little more loose-lipped. And then you've got three Republicans who are running against each other. They're great guys, but they're all single digits. And I think that it's sort of hard for people to get really excited when you know that two like-minded people are going to be running against each other in November.
I also want to take a moment to go back to that debate and hear what Kamala Harris and Duff Sondheim had to say about the issue of gun control.
Not at the federal level. I would leave it up to the states to decide what they wanted to do. And here in California, we have the second toughest laws of any state in the country. And I think those laws, if we implemented them, would do the job. Kamala Harris asked for $24 million, said that for those $24 million, she would get guns out of the hands of criminals and people that had mental disabilities. She's totally failed to do that job.
It's unfortunate that we're playing around with very important facts here. The fact is that the Department of Justice under my leadership has taken almost 10,000 guns out of the hands of people who were legally prohibited from having them. We have revived that program in my office in a way that it has never existed before, to bring real resources to put special agents out on the street to take guns out of the hands of people who are legally prohibited from doing that. Let's not play around with real human lives when we're talking about these issues.
So, James, Harris has been criticized for not moving aggressively enough on the issue of officer-involved shootings as Attorney General. Could that hurt her? And how do you think she's viewed by voters?
Yeah, I think she's viewed very favorably. She has been for some time, and especially liberals and progressives. Conservatives, absolutely not. And law enforcement back here in San Francisco, going back to the killing of an officer in the Bayview Hunters Point, absolutely not. But she definitely will not be hurt in the long run. I just think she's a Democratic darling. She's the female Barack Obama, the way they pitched her, the smarter on crime agenda that she used successfully here in San Francisco, I think all play well for her.
Real quick, it looks like the two Democrats are going to be in the runoff in the fall. And I think if you got Trump at the top of the ticket and no Republican on the ballot for the Senate, if I were a down ballot Republican in a vulnerable district, I'd be very worried about turnout.
And I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans voting for Loretta Sanchez in November if the top two primary does pit Harris against Sanchez, because people look at Kamala Harris. She's a very visible Democrat. Barack Obama said she's the hottest attorney general in the country. People think that she has the White House in her dreams when she goes to bed at night. And so this is a chance to stop Kamala Harris.
All right. Certainly a lot to watch between now and, gosh, Tuesday, right? It's upon us. Thank you all. Scott Shafer, KQED's senior politics editor, Debra Saunders with the San Francisco Chronicle, and University of San Francisco political science professor James Taylor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
San Francisco Opera kicks off its summer season with a modern and edgy take on a beloved opera classic, Bizet's Carmen. With temperatures heating up and summer just around the corner, the Bay Area is offering a variety of events and shows that the whole family can enjoy. KQED senior arts editor Chloe Veltman is back with some of her top picks. Hi, Chloe. Always good to see you.
Hello, Tree. Nice to see you, too.
Good to see you. Let's start with San Francisco Opera. Those who love the classic Carmen may be in for a surprise here. This is not the Carmen they may have remembered, or their mom may have remembered.
Indeed, it's not your great aunt's, grandmother's, or any elderly relatives' version of Carmen. It's very pared down, hyper-sexualized, created for the stage by this sort of bad boy of opera director from Spain called Calixto Bieto. And in fact, we have a clip for our viewers to watch. Let's take a look now. So this version of the opera really focuses on sort of male sexual aggression against women. At one point, there's a flag that's hoisted on a flagpole, and the flag comes down, and then suddenly there's a woman up there who's been hoisted up there. It's pretty powerful stuff.
And in fact, there's male nudity in this, which is rare for an opera.
That's right. A few moments, not too much, but yes, you don't often see that on the opera stage for sure.
Yeah. So Carmen without the passion and the romance, really a gritty version of it.
Absolutely a gritty version, and it is a wonderful version. And if you don't get to see it at the Opera House on July the 2nd, you can see this version of Carmen for free at the ballpark, because it's going to be simulcast there. And it's really a wonderful time. You can take the whole family along and have a picnic and enjoy an opera in the open air.
Yeah, that's always such a popular event. Okay, speaking of non-traditional performances, across the Bay in Oakland, there's a walk-through music event with all kinds of musicians and sound artists doing a lot of things all at once.
Yes, this is the Garden of Memory event. It happens every Midsummer Night in Oakland. It's been going on for many years. And so this Midsummer Night is a Tuesday night, the 21st, and audiences can wander through this beautiful, historic columbarium and witness a bunch of different artists in different nooks and crannies experimenting with sound and music. So we have some clips from this. Let's take a look and a listen. Yeah, this is really a fun event, and there are many dozens of different artists who are involved each year. Some of them come back year after year, and others just perform once or twice.
Who are some of the most intriguing artists we should look for?
Well, I'm interested in the Light Bulb Ensemble. It's a gamelan ensemble from Oakland, but they make all the instruments themselves. They're handmade. There's also going to be a performance by Dylan Mattingly, who's this 25-year-old composer, multi-instrumentalist. He's local, and he's doing really great things at the moment. He's going to be playing improvised solo cello, I believe.
Awesome. Moving on to the visual arts now, we have an LA-based artist, Laura Owens. She is playing with our concept of what a painted canvas should be.
That's right. This is an exhibition at the Wattis Institute, and Laura Owens has taken over the whole space. She's embedded 10 paintings behind this incredible handmade wallpaper. So
we're looking at it now. You can't even really tell where the wallpaper starts or ends, or where the canvas is.
Exactly. So you're wondering, so what's the work of art? Is it the art that's hidden behind the wallpaper, or is indeed the wallpaper the most important art to look at? The interesting thing about this is there are all these cell phone numbers embedded in the wallpaper, and you can text a question, any question you want, to the wallpaper, and it will endeavour to answer it for you. So when I went in there, I think I texted, will Donald Trump become president? And this male voice came out of the wallpaper and said, it's going to be a tight race.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right, if you're looking for a sense of community, head down to the South Bay because Mountain Play has the perfect combination, a classic musical play in an awesome setting.
Actually, it's in Marin, yeah, atop Mount Tam. This is a wonderful company, Mountain Play, that's been putting on productions for 103 years, and this classic 1957 musical, West Side Story, that's created by Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim. They're doing this production. It's only the second time in the company's history that people have been able to see this show. It's a lively production. It's got some seasoned pros in it as well as some up-and-comers, and it's a great time. You know, you can hike up there or you can take the bus if you like and enjoy the sunshine. Of course, bring your sunscreen.
Yeah, bring something for a picnic too.
Yeah.
All right, from a big stage to a big public performance project, we've got the local group Bandaloop. It has something massive in store for this summer in Civic Center.
Bandaloop is a fantastic local aerial dance company, and they are collaborating on a project that's going to bring to life this enormous wall on the side of the Hastings Law School. So you're going to see dancers jumping off the side of it, dancing on the vertical plane. There's going to be visual art and spoken word poetry and music. And it's all about the mid-market neighborhood, looking at the change of that neighborhood.
That looks fantastic. Can you imagine the body strength? And finally, I want to talk about this really quickly. If you're in the mood for comedy, the funny songwriting duo from New Zealand is coming our way.
That's right, the Flight of the Conchords. People may recognize them from the HBO series they did. They're a great comedic songwriting pair from New Zealand. They're swooping down on the Bay Area as part of their US tour. You can catch them at the Masonic in San Francisco on the 27th of June, and then they're going down to the Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View on the 28th.
And they are charming, geeky and charming and quite fun to watch.
They are. They're among my favorites.
Chloe Veltman, our senior arts editor, thanks so much.
It's a real pleasure, Twee. Thank you.
This does it for us. I'm Twee Vu. Thanks so much for watching. For more of KQED's arts coverage, please go to kqed.org/arts.